Alrighty, so it's been a couple of days since I've last done a video on my channel, and the reason that is the case is because I've been a little bit sick these past couple of days, and I've also done a couple of overnight shift at my job, and therefore that's why I haven't been able to get time to make a video. But alas, since now it is officially my off day, and even though I'm still kind of feeling a little bit sick, as you can probably tell from my voice, I think I'm healthy enough to basically do some video on my channel again, and especially with the way that the World Cup actually started in 5 days, I have to start making videos about the World Cup. Now, obviously, I know there's not as a lot of hype of this World Cup compared to previous World Cup, and obviously, there's been on and off the feels kind of controversy still surrounding this World Cup that I will not discuss. Well, maybe a little bit in this video, because you can't really escape from the fact that there's just so much controversy surrounding this World Cup, and especially with the whole human rights and the migrant worker situation. I'll mention a little bit, but I don't want to mention too much, because then this video might be demonetized or censored and stuff like that. But instead, we'll actually talk about the actual game itself and kind of just make some prediction about what's going to happen in this World Cup, and not just any prediction, but bold prediction of what's going to happen in this World Cup. And that I'm pretty sure all 10 of these bold prediction is probably not going to be true. I mean, I'll be lucky if maybe a couple of these might be actually true. But the first bold prediction that I'm going to be making, that doesn't sound like a bold prediction, but I'll explain in a bit why that is the case, is that France will make it out of the group. And again, it doesn't sound like a bold prediction, because France is probably the most talented team coming into this World Cup, and probably the most deepest squad coming into this World Cup. So why do I think it's a bold prediction? Well, here's why. You know that World Cup curse that every time when a team wins the World Cup in the previous edition, and then in the very next year they don't make it out of the group? Yeah, that's been the case for the past 5 World Cup, and that again, this is kind of odd to see that is the case, especially when you look at the past couple of World Cup, and that there are some of these teams that, of course, won the World Cup, and then the next round, they don't even get into a very hard group, and somehow they don't find their way getting out of the group. And that, again, that's why it kind of feels like it's a curse now that it's been put on any team that, of course, win the World Cup. In the next one, they're not only not going to be defending their crown, but also they're not even going to make it out of the knockout stage and have a chance to defend their crown. But I truly think that curse may be coming to an end, because, as the old saying goes, all narratives and all curse would have to come to an end eventually, and I think this might be the one, despite the fact that I know France has been going through a bit of a tough time. I mean, there's already some people saying that this could be another disastrous World Cup for France. I mean, this could be similar to what happened in 2010, when, we all know what happened in 2010 with the whole scandal that was going on, and the disastrous situation where I think France finished bottom of their group, despite having a lot of good talent and coming into this World Cup. I mean, anytime when you have Mbappe in your team, you know that you're going to have a shot to make it to a World Cup, even though there's been some on the field and off the field controversy surrounding him and the French national team. I just think that this team is just too deep and too talented to not make it out their group. And especially when you look at their group, I mean, it's a little bit tricky. I mean, they do have Denmark, a team that they definitely don't want to have to face them in the World Cup, but unfortunately they did, because that's a team that have beat them twice in the Nations League. And then we also see Australia, and then there was one other team that I forgot who is. I think it was Tunisia that also is in the group. It's a tricky group, but I think with the talent that France have, it should be enough for them to, of course, move on into the next round. So yeah, I think France will finally end that curse in terms of teams winning the World Cup and getting knocked out in the next round. Though it's going to be interesting to see how far they're going to go in this tournament. And then the other bold prediction for this World Cup is that a European country will not win the World Cup. So for the past couple of editions, I think not since 2002 we have had a country that win the World Cup that is not from Europe, because I know in 2006 it was Italy winning the World Cup, 2010 it was Spain winning the World Cup, 2014 we saw Germany winning the World Cup, and then most recently in 2018 we saw France winning the World Cup, and it's been almost 20 years now since last time we've seen a team not from the UEFA region that have won the World Cup. That is Brazil in 2002. Though I think this could potentially come to an end because again, there's been a lot of discussion about those South American team, and I think this might be finally the edition that those South American team will finally overcome their European rivals, and that there could be a team from South America that I think could potentially win this World Cup, and that this might be finally the year we might not see a team coming from UEFA winning the World Cup. And then the third bold prediction for this World Cup is Qatar will get out of the group. Now this is definitely one of the more bold prediction because Qatar, when you look at the group that they are in, yeah, it's not easy whatsoever. And you could say that they're probably the weakest out of their group. I mean, they got Ecuador in their group, and then they also have who else they have? They have the Netherlands in the group, and then there's one more team that I forgot who was also in their group, but you know what I mean about how they are the weakest link in their group. But as we have seen before in terms of hosts being in the World Cup, it seems like that home field advantage is definitely a real thing because you look at these past couple of World Cup and ever since the 21st century, pretty much every team that hosts the World Cup has been able to make it out of the group. There's only one team that I know that didn't make it out of the group, and that was South Africa back in 2010. But even then, they were very close of making out of the group. They were kind of unlucky to not make it out of that group. And that again, Qatar, you would think that they're the weakest link, but look what happened to Russia. I mean, we said Russia was the weakest link in their group, although you could argue maybe Russia, they were in the same group as Saudi Arabia, and that some people say Saudi Arabia was actually the weakest link. But the bottom line is, I think Qatar, this team, I know it's not known to a lot of people, but they are definitely an underrated team. And one thing I will say about this Qatar team is that we have seen them play in multiple kind of tournament in different confederation. I mean, we saw them in the Gold Cup, and I saw them play against the U.S., and they really put up a fight against the U.S. Like in that semi-final, I know a lot of people thought that this was going to be just a rollover, that they were going to easily beat Qatar, but no. Qatar actually put up a good fight, and they actually had some decent chances against the U.S. That, if they could have put away the chances, that could have been a different Gold Cup semi-final than the one that we're talking about. But the bottom line is, this team is a very good team, and not to mention, I think they've also won the AFC Asian Cup in the last edition. So yeah, this is a team that could surprise a couple of people, and not to mention, they of course will get home field advantage in this World Cup, and that's definitely a good thing for teams that gets home field advantage. I think there's a chance that they could definitely make it out of the group, even if they're the weakest link. And then the other bold prediction for this World Cup, there will be an African team that will make it to the semifinal of the World Cup. And I think specifically that African team I'm focusing is Senegal. I mean, there's been a lot of people talk about Senegal could be that African team that not only make it out of the group, but could go for a deep run. And it's definitely could be the case because I think in the last World Cup for Senegal, they were so unlucky to not make it out of the group. Like they got probably one of the toughest and one of the harshest way to not make it out of the group of losing, not just on a tiebreaker, but it lost in like the fourth tiebreaker, which is like the fair play rule. And that, yeah, I mean that was just really rough for them to not make it out of the group. But I think this team is going to do so. I mean, the team that they had in the last World Cup are kind of almost the same as they coming in to this World Cup. I mean, their star player Sadio Mane is going to be the guy that going to guide them to glory. But there's definitely some well-known names on this team too. You got the two Chelsea player in Antoine Mendy's goal and Koulibaly there in at the back, though there's a question about his fitness because I think he did get injured in the last game when Chelsea played against Newcastle. But yeah, I think Senegal is that team that if you talk about African team potentially making deep, and African team, I know in the last edition of the World Cup it was super disappointing because none of them made it out of the World Cup, even though there was a lot of hype around that. These African team can potentially do so, but I think this could be the case where there's gonna be some strong team coming out of the CAF region, and that that, yeah, there's going to be a couple of African teams, not just Senegal. I think there's even chances that a couple of teams could make it out. Ghana is definitely one of those teams because Ghana, they have done very well in the World Cup for the past couple of editions. So yeah, I think there's going to be a couple, but specifically Senegal might be that team that could go all the way to the semifinal and make a very surprising run. And then the other bold prediction in the World Cup is England will not make it out of the group. Now, out of all the team in the World Cup, besides the U.S. and in some extents the Canadian national team, England is a team that I definitely pay the most attention and know most about the team. And I will say, when I look at this England team, I mean, it's almost the same as the one we saw that of course fell in the final hurdle by losing to Italy in Euros 2020, and that this is also slightly a different team that of course made it to the semifinal of the World Cup back in Russia. But one concern that I do have with England is the fact that, I feel like now there's expectation for this team. I think when you look at what happened in 2018, I don't think there was expectation on this team, and there was not as much pressure on this team as we've seen with England whenever they make it to the World Cup. Because I know every time when England is in the World Cup, the media will just create these unnecessary kind of pressure on the team, and a lot of these young players just kind of falter. And that it feels like now that it's started to kind of creep in again, you can see this team is start to falter. And not to mention, when you also look at this team, while the front three is definitely decent, I think Harry Kane is going to do very well alongside with Sterling and Saka and potentially Grealish there in that number 10 position. I have question in terms of this midfield for England, and I especially have question in terms of this defense for England, because most likely we're going to see Harry Maguire being as a starting defender for this England team. And I talk about how the US, there's a lot of people that have talked about the hatred of Aaron Long potentially be a starting center back for this US team. Yeah, basically I think Harry Maguire is basically like Aaron Long, where a lot of England fans have been kind of very frustrated and just kind of downright disgusted the fact that Harry Maguire is going to be their defender. Because if you know anything about Harry Maguire, he's basically like a meme right now. Like, he is not a great defender whatsoever. There was a time where they made a meme about all his bad defending that he has, and that if he's going to be the guy that is going to lead the line for this team, yeah, that there's going to be question. I mean, he is definitely nowhere near as good as he was in 2018, or even in the Euros in 2020. And then lastly, I think the other big question for this England team and big concern is Gareth Southgate. And again, just like the US, where there's been a lot of negative attention toward Greg Berhalter, and certainly fans have talked about the negative kind of tactics that Greg Berhalter kind of used. It's the same thing for England. There's a lot of England fans that don't like Gareth Southgate and the tactics that he used. And not to mention, this is also a team that have not coming into this World Cup in the best of form. I mean, in the Nations League, it was an absolute disaster. Like, I think they lost to Hungary like twice in the Nations League, and that I think they only got like one win out of the last 5 games heading into this World Cup. So yeah, don't be surprised that this could be a tournament where England could underachieve. And England there's been times where they have underachieved. I mean, 2014 is a prime example of it, with them just not only not making it out of the group, but finish bottom of the group. And that, yeah, there could be a case where I could see them underachieve, even though when you look at this team, I feel like if everything goes right with this team, then I think this team could make a deep run like what we saw in 2018. But the thing is, everything needs to go right, and that when it comes to everything needs to go right, and England in the World Cup, that doesn't usually go well together. So yeah, there could be a case where I won't be surprised they might not make it out of the group, and I won't be surprised when I look at Group B, where you have the US and Wales and Iran. I won't be surprised that those 3 teams could have a chance to beat England in the World Cup. Now, speaking of the US, I predicted that, or I made a bold prediction that they will make it all the way to the quarterfinal and will top the group. And yes, that is definitely a very, very bold prediction too, because I just said about how England, everything needs to go right for them to do well in this tournament. It's the same thing for the US. I mean, I feel like this is kind of another team that's kind of boom and bust, and that there could be cases where if everything goes right and you know, if they actually have a number 9 like potentially Jesus Ferreira scoring the goals, or even not having a number 9 scoring the goals, but some of their wingers and central attacking midfielder is able to carry the way. So guys like Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson, or even Gio Reyna carry the way, and especially Christian Pulisic. There could be a chance that they could, of course, top the group. But again, everything needs to go right, and I basically will just kind of copy and paste what I said about England, of the fact that there's question in terms of the attack, there's question about this midfield, and there's especially question about this defense, and even in the goalkeeping position. And then lastly, there's question about Greg Berhalter's tactics, and that I think that first game is going to tell a lot about this team, because, you know, again, this is also another team that's not heading into the World Cup in the best of form. I mean, those two resort where they lost to Japan and failed to able to get a result against Saudi Arabia is going to hinder this team. But again, you know, I've seen this team throughout the qualifying stage that every time when they have a down moment, they find their way to pick themselves up and show that tenacity that they can be able to overcome adversity. And I feel like this could be the case. I think they will have it in them, even though this is definitely the youngest team out of all the team that's going to the World Cup. And that, yeah, there could be a chance that they could top the group if everything goes right with them. And speaking of the U.S. and CONCACAF teams, I think all the CONCACAF team will make it out of the group. Now, this is probably the bold prediction that I think I'm confident that it's not going to be right at all, because, you know, when you look at all these CONCACAF teams, you look at Mexico, Canada, and Costa Rica in this World Cup, pretty much all of them are in a tough group. I mean, you know, I think Canada might be in the easiest group out of the CONCACAF team, but even then, they have some decent team like Morocco and Belgium in the group, and there was another team that I forgot that is also in their group. And then when you look at Mexico, they got Argentina and Saudi Arabia in the same group as they have, and they also have Poland in their group. That's not going to be an easy group, especially, as I'll mention in just a bit, who is potentially going to win this World Cup. And then there's, when you look at Costa Rica, they're basically in the group of death. I mean, they're in the same group as Germany, Japan, and Spain too. And that, again, many people say that that's the toughest group to get out of. So there could be a case that we could have a situation that no CONCACAF team could actually make it to the World Cup. Maybe we'll get like one or two that will make it, but, you know, it's a big ask to say all of them has make it out of the group. In fact, I don't think that has ever happened in the World Cup before, that every single CONCACAF team has been able to make it out of the group. But, you know, I'll just make this very bold prediction and say that something's telling me that it's going to happen, and that, you know, this maybe is a special World Cup in the CONCACAF region, because, again, you know, as I know that throughout this World Cup, I'll definitely be rooting for the U.S. in this one. Definitely also want to root for your region and want to kind of announce the world that the CONCACAF region is a region that is definitely up and coming, and could be a region that could be a force in the future, even though a lot of people have still said that the dominant region is still in the CONMEBOL region, and especially in the UEFA region. And then the next bold prediction I made about this World Cup, and I'll just quickly glance in this, because this is the one that I talked about earlier, that I will kind of discuss a little bit about the controversy of the World Cup. And that, of course, is that there will at least be 5 games where there's going to be a pitch invader protesting about the controversy of the World Cup. I mean, you know, I think when you look at these past couple of World Cup, there's always been a lot of controversy. But I think this one is probably the one that has the biggest controversy, because of the whole human rights situation in Qatar and the migrant worker dying to construct the stadium. And then lastly, we also talk about the whole rainbow flag and the LGBT situation there in Qatar, where you're not allowed to displace it, and if you're displaced it, then you could definitely face some jail time. And that, yeah, it just have created a lot of controversy, and just kind of is another reason why, you know, FIFA in general is just kind of a corrupt organization. I mean, they have a lot of contradiction in terms of what they stand, and a lot of different political view that they stand, and some that they think is okay, and some that is definitely not okay. And that, again, you know, the fact that FIFA stood with what Qatar is saying, that you're not allowed to display a rainbow flag or LGBT kind of symbols throughout the game, just completely backtrack of what they've done before, and that again, that's where the controversy began. I mean, the controversy really all started when Qatar was announced as the host nation, and it's also not surprising that that FIFA president that announced it in Sepp Blatter decided that 10 years later he says that is a big mistake, and yeah, Sepp, no, crap, that was a mistake, and that it's 10 years too late in terms of finally admit that was a huge mistake to award Qatar the World Cup. But like I said, I think there's definitely going to be protests throughout this World Cup, and that again we've seen pitch invader, of course, have invaded the World Cup and even some big events throughout these past couple of years, and I will not be surprised we're going to see it happen. And that again, I think 5 games, maybe it's a little bit too many, but I won't be surprised in the World Cup final we could see it again, because last year, or not last year, but in the last World Cup final, we did had a pitch invader during the game protesting Putin's reign with Russia, and that I feel like this could be the same case in this World Cup, but maybe even in a more extreme level. And then the next bold prediction that I have is that Denmark will be the dark horse in this tournament and will make it all the way to finals. So I feel like, for Denmark, they could definitely be like Croatia in the last World Cup, where, Croatia is definitely a team that in the last World Cup, they definitely have some good, decent name, but they're definitely a hard-working team that will always find a way to get into the next round. And I feel like the character that Croatia had in the last World Cup, it's very similar to this Danish team. I mean, this Danish team, they definitely have some well-known names. I mean, the biggest name of this team is Christian Eriksen, who has had an incredible season with Manchester United. But, I just think that, with the way that you look at how they did in the Nations League, knocking out France twice in the Nations League, and have been in incredible good form. And again, just when you look at how the quality of this team and the way that they play, it reminds me a lot about Croatia in the 2018 World Cup, where it's it's a small nation, not a lot of people, but somehow they have the quality to overperform and can find themselves all the way and make a run to the World Cup final. And I think Denmark can definitely be that team to do so. And yes, I know they are in a group where they do have to face some tough opponent. I mean, France is definitely their toughest opponent that they'll be facing. But again, this is a team that they won't be fearing France, because they've already beat them twice in the Nations League. And I've already mentioned about France issue coming into this World Cup, and that I think the Danish, this is also kind of a team, I would say it's kind of like the people's team, because this is a team that have been giving a lot of support with a lot of neutral, especially from what happened in the Euro 2020 situation with Christian Eriksen collapsing in the middle of the game. And that again, the whole like pretty much the whole neutral world we're basically rooting for Denmark to do well, and that I think they're going to do it again in this one, and this team could definitely be the darlings of the World Cup this year. And then finally, in terms of the bold prediction, and I have to make a prediction of who's going to win it all in the bold prediction video, and I pick Argentina, the one to win the World Cup. Now, again, I don't know if this is kind of a bold prediction, because Argentina is definitely one of the favorites alongside with Brazil, and not to mention when EA decided to have like a FIFA World Cup simulation, as they always done in the past couple of editions, they did pick Argentina to win the World Cup, and that they have been right in terms of the prediction for the past couple of editions of the World Cup of who's going to win it. So there could be a chance that this could be the case. But I also feel like, when you look at this Argentina team, I mean, Messi obviously is going to be the name that you'll always talk about with Argentina, and that, again, this potentially will be his last World Cup. Well, actually, not potentially. I think he already said that this is going to be his last World Cup, and really his last opportunity to prove that, he's going to gain the same status that Maradona had with this Argentina team, winning the World Cup and winning the ultimate prize. And that, there could be a chance that this might be the case. I mean, I think when you look at this Argentina team, it's not really the most talented Argentinian team as we've seen in the past couple of years. I would argue that 2014 teams that made it to the final is a little bit more talented than this one. But there's just something about this team with the way that, it's a very cohesive kind of team. And it's also kind of a team that is well balanced, where they have a very good attack, very good midfield, and very good defense. And when you're kind of well rounded, that's a very dangerous weapons to have, because you know when you don't have a lot of weakness, teams can't find a way to maybe exploit that and take advantage of it. So I think this Argentina team is set up to have a really good run, and especially also with the form that they've been in that CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying stage. They were one of the best team in terms of that. I mean, besides Brazil, I think they were the best team in the CONMEBOL region, and not to mention in the Copa America, they did beat their rival Brazil in front of their own stadium to win that competition. Yeah, I think this team has that ability to when there's a big game that is happening in this, especially in the World Cup, they can definitely perform and able to move on into the next round in these games. So I think there's a chance that Argentina is going to do. And again, you know, Messi, he's going to give everything he's got, because again, this is his last World Cup. It's his last opportunity. You know, he's going to let everything out of the tank, and also especially with Messi, he's definitely been in a much better form this year compared to Ronaldo. And speaking of Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding him too, and that if there is a bonus bold prediction I'll make, I think Portugal is not going to make it out of the group. Yes, that is definitely a huge bold prediction to say, but they do have some tough team in their group too. So yeah, and Portugal has been a team that there's been times where they have underachieved in big tournaments before, and even though they also have a talented team, I just have a feeling that this maybe might be the year that they might not make it to the World Cup. But similar to Messi's situation, I feel Ronaldo, knowing that this could be the last World Cup for him, and this might be the last time we've seen the two most legendary player during our generation play on the same field. Yeah, I think you know that both of these players is going to give them all and trying to solidify their legendary status of lifting a World Cup for their respective country. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my 10 bold prediction that I made in this World Cup. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these bold prediction, and if there's any bold prediction that you want to add on about this World Cup, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.